You are probably not distant or cruel, yet your instinct to help is often what makes her withdraw. Most men think women leave because attention fades, but usually something subtler is breaking the bond underneath first. What she misses is not more effort, but a kind of emotional precision almost nobody ever taught you. And once you see it, her reactions stop looking chaotic and start looking painfully, almost mathematically, consistent instead. This video gives you 5 hidden needs women rarely explain because many barely know how themselves fully. Miss them, and even love can feel abrasive. Understand them, and closeness starts opening where resistance lived. And the fifth one goes deeper than romance because it explains how her body decides whether attachment feels safe. Not her words, not her logic. Yeah, but the silent biological verdict she reaches long before she says anything. The first need is simple, brutal, and missed constantly. Do not fix her feelings before you feel them. The fastest way to damage intimacy is becoming useful too early because premature logic can feel emotionally abandoning. You think you are solving the problem, but her nervous system often hears something colder. Your feelings are inconvenient. That sting matters more than men realize because good intentions can still train her to feel alone. Psychology has a clean distinction here. Problem solving reduces external friction, but emotional validation reduces internal activation first. When emotion is high, the brain does not organize through strategy before it organizes through being met. So your competence, which usually serves you well, it can become the exact instrument that quietly breaks connection. And this is where many decent men feel confused, because they were loving her the only way they understood. Picture her in the passenger seat after work, voice thinner than usual, fingers twisting her sleeve while describing humiliation. 12 seconds later, you offer a plan, a script, a better response, and think you have shown strength. Outwardly, it sounds caring, but inside she contracts because your speed tells her to move past herself. She needed a container, not a correction, a place where her feeling could land before being organized. So try something almost embarrassingly small. Name what you see, then ask what kind of presence she needs. You seem overwhelmed and hurt. Do you want me beside you right now or helping think? That one sentence changes the emotional climate because she feels felt before she feels managed and everything softens. But even if you stop repairing her emotions, most men fail immediately afterward, believing grand gestures erase daily unpredictability. What breaks things next is even crueler because it often hides inside effort itself. Do not impress, stabilize instead. Men assume trust grows from memorable highs, yet women usually anchor deeper to repeated, ordinary signals of safety. A perfect night cannot regulate the confusion created by random distance, delayed replies, or emotional weather changes afterward. You think she remembers the flowers, the reservation, the drive across town, the passion, the generosity most. But her body tracks the silence after intimacy, the clipped tone tomorrow, the chill after disagreement, the vanishing. That is where decent men accidentally injure connection daily, because inconsistency feels small to you and seismic. And once she starts scanning those gaps, your best gestures stop landing as love and start landing uncertain. Attachment theory explains this with embarrassing clarity. The nervous system trusts patterns more than occasional emotional jackpots ever. Intermittent reward can create obsession, yes, but it does not create calm, and calm is what intimacy needs. Her brain settles when your presence stays legible across closeness, stress, conflict, and ordinary boring hours between peaks. So the paradox is brutal. The man who tries hardest to create magic may still manufacture instability. Imagine planning an incredible date, holding her face tenderly, making her feel chosen, then texting dryly tomorrow. For you, it is workload, pressure, distraction, a normal day where nothing important has actually changed inside. For her, it can become the first tremor of threat because unpredictability activates vigilance long before reason. If you recognize yourself here, keep going because this is no longer about niceness, but unconscious damage. The repair is simpler than your ego expects, but harder than grand romance because it demands rhythm, not performance. Keep the same warmth after closeness that you had while pursuing, especially when intensity no longer carries momentum. Send one brief signal of presence instead of disappearing into silence and assuming security should explain itself. After tension, become predictable fast, not perfect, just emotionally legible enough that she stops bracing for withdrawal. Love is felt less like fireworks exploding overhead and more like a heartbeat continuing through darkness unchanged. That steadiness tells her she is not borrowing your affection temporarily, but living inside a reliable emotional climate. And the next mistake cuts even deeper because when she says everything is fine, words stop mattering. Then comes the third need, seeing more than words, because language often arrives long after emotional contact shifts. Many men think honesty means extracting a clean explanation, but intimacy often breaks before explanations become verbally available. You ask directly, calmly, logically, believing clarity is mature and that part is not wrong at all. But she may hear something painfully narrower underneath. Explain yourself perfectly because I cannot feel you otherwise here. And yes, you have probably done this repeatedly while believing you were being respectful, patient, even emotionally responsible. The problem is not your question itself, but the timing, because interrogation can replace attunement too early. You wanted information, while she needed recognition first, and that mismatch quietly teaches her to disappear inward. And this is where good men damage closeness most because the mistake looks so reasonable externally. There is a real psychological frame for this. Effective attunement, which is sensitivity to context, not mind reading. Closeness grows less from telepathy than from noticing micro changes in tone, rhythm, gaze, and emotional availability. In other words, she is not asking you to guess her secrets, only to register her weather. Imagine you are driving at night and she is quieter than usual, and looking outward, answering half a second slower. You ask what happened, and she says nothing, which is exactly where most men retreat too fast. They take the words literally because words feel safer than ambiguity, while her nervous system already sent signals. What hurts her is not that you missed hidden content, but that you ignored visible change in contact. If you want to become a man she can actually soften around, stay with this because it gets deeper. Instead of pressing for a report, try a gentle reflection that proves you noticed without forcing immediate disclosure. Say, you seem a little far away right now and I can feel some tension, but I am here. That sentence does something powerful. It removes the burden of translation while keeping the bridge emotionally intact. She feels read, not cornered, and that difference can stop withdrawal before it hardens into distance. No, this does not mean abandoning direct communication, and yes, it means becoming more perceptive than comfortable. If this is landing somewhere uncomfortably true, keep going, because the next mistake wounds even conscientious men. Sometimes your calm, your restraint, your so-called maturity is exactly what she experiences as coldness instead. And that paradox breaks more relationships than anger ever does because it hides inside behavior men call strength. The fourth need is where many good men quietly fail. Your calm can wound her more than conflict ever. Not because steadiness is wrong, but because sterile composure without warmth can feel like emotional disappearance in real time. You call it maturity, self-control, restraint, and strength, while her body registers something harsher, colder, and far lonelier instead. And this is the paradox most men never see until distance has already hardened into a private verdict. You thought avoiding drama protected the bond, yet sometimes it only removed the human contact she needed most. So yes, you may have spent years not insulting her, not shouting, not exploding, and still abandoned her. That should sting a little because this mistake hides inside decency and therefore survives much longer than obvious cruelty. But the good news is brutal too. Once you see it, you can change it almost immediately. Co-regulation does not mean merely staying controlled while she is activated. It means lending warmth while her system settles. Neutrality is not the same as safety, and emotional flatness is not the same as grounded masculine presence. A nervous system relaxes through contact, not just through the absence of threat, and that distinction changes everything. Imagine the aftermath of a conflict when you go quiet to avoid making things worse for both. Inside your mind, you are containing yourself, being careful, trying not to say something sharp or irreversible later. Inside her body, that same silence may feel like punishment, withdrawal, or a locked door she cannot open. And once silence feels punitive, the argument does not end when the words stop. It keeps echoing physiologically. If you want to become a man she can actually trust deeply, learn this difference before it costs years. Because now the issue is no longer wording or technique, but whether her body stops scanning danger beside you. So keep the calm, but add heat to it. A softer tone, a hand on her arm. Say something simple and regulating, like, I am not leaving you, I am here, even if this is hard. That sentence does more than reassure her mind, it gives her nervous system something stable to organize around. Suddenly your steadiness stops feeling like distance and starts feeling like shelter, which is an entirely different experience. This is how strength becomes relational instead of solitary, and why warmth is not weakness, but precision. If this is hitting somewhere uncomfortable, stay with it, because the deepest layer is still ahead of you. The final point explains why these tiny moments are never just moods, misunderstandings, or passing emotional weather. They become a biological decision about attachment, even where her body chooses whether loving you feels safe enough. She attaches with her body, not only her heart, and this is where everything you've heard finally becomes real. Her deepest need is not romance alone, but regulation, because love cannot root deeply inside constant vigilance anywhere. You may be loyal, driven, protective, and still feel confusingly unsafe if your closeness turns slippery after vulnerability. That contradiction is brutal because words can promise devotion while your emotional pattern quietly teaches her body caution. And here the earlier mistakes converge into one biological message she cannot simply override through reason or hope. Fixing too fast, disappearing unpredictably, missing emotional cues, or staying warmless in conflict all become one signal: danger. Not dramatic danger, but the exhausting kind that forces her system to keep scanning instead of settling. And once that scanning becomes chronic, attachment stops deepening, even when she still wants desperately to believe in you. This is the part most men never learn. Attachment is also co-regulation, not merely chemistry, attraction, or commitment. Her nervous system is constantly asking whether your presence lowers defensive activation or quietly keeps it alive beneath tenderness. Biology cares less about your intentions than your pattern, because predictability is what allows the body to unclench. Evolution shaped women to notice not only strength, but whether strength becomes stabilizing under stress and uncertainty. So, when she opens after a hard day or a painful argument, the real test begins afterward. Does she have to guess if you will cool off, vanish emotionally, punish with silence, or become unreadable again? Or does your tone stay coherent, your warmth remain available, and your presence tell her nothing dangerous changed? That predictable softness is not small at all. It is the moment her body stops bracing and starts bonding. So the instruction is almost humbling. Become a place where she does not have to scan anymore. Keep your tone steady after tension, offer warmth after rupture, and choose clarity over sudden emotional fog. Say what is happening instead of withdrawing mysteriously, because ambiguity forces her body back into defensive labor. Stay present after her vulnerability, especially then, because tiny reactions become massive signals of whether attachment is safe. This is the paradox men miss. The smallest consistent gestures often communicate the deepest form of choice. And the good news is this is not about perfection, performance, or becoming some flawlessly intuitive romantic machine. It is about attention refined into steadiness, the kind that calms another human being at system level. Real intimacy begins the moment she no longer has to tense beside you.